What is up, everybody? We are live. This is Worker to Worker, and it is episode 10. I can't believe we've done 10 of these things. I was not calling it a podcast. I think it is probably a podcast at this point if you do 10. I don't know what the number is for that. But it is a very, very special Worker to Worker. This is actually Worker to Customer. I met Brandon through a YouTube short on YouTube. Uh, I'm gonna let him tell the story about that experience. But what happened on my side? My name's Eric from UFCW Local 8, and everybody knows that we're going through a lot of labor action right now. I was looking at YouTube shorts around unionism and labor activity, and his short popped up, and he was recording a video as a customer, and it really spoke to me. So we connected, and here we are. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on and taking the time to talk to me. I really appreciate it. You know how much we love our customers. They pay our checks. So thank you. I'm really interested to hear your perspective. Why don't you take a minute to let everybody know who you are and what you do and how we got connected?
Yeah, no, this is fun stuff. Obviously, the fun part isn't that you all have to resort to going on strike, but it's necessary. And I mean, as soon as I saw that, um, making the video was the easy part. Had a chance to share just kind of that. I got it in a Facebook group. Also said, hey, don't be a temp worker for these people. And we had folks that think that one got a lot of engagement, and there were other unions that chimed in as well, negotiating with UC Health, who said we're also coming up on collective bargaining and to keep that energy going. So that's the easiest part. But yeah, I launched my company independently, OIAS, a couple months ago. So we're coming up on month 2 of it being official, and it's focused on a lot of stuff like this, business practices, but rooted in human practice, right? People are the most important resource that we've got. And without people, there's certainly no business, there's no society. So again, seeing that there was a labor dispute, it was very easy to pick sides. So
So I saw that. I'm guessing that the YouTube short that I saw was on your business page. Is that correct?
yeah, that was straight through there. So it's actually the podcast that I have has been up for about 2 years.
Oh,
So instead of just making a whole new channel, I just kind of merged everything into that. So it's parallel to it. Eventually, there will probably be other people that are on that space that can kind of brand their own stuff on there as a channel. But yeah, I saw that short. I try to get a couple of shorts out a week. That one was topical. That one was there, and who would have thought, right? A comment, well, first of all, forget that. Seeing it, then it creating an interaction between us, and now an impromptu recording, and we're
yeah.
making some magic happen. So I'm into it.
Yeah, I will say to people out there that are listening, talk to your customers, talk to your coworkers, because that's the missing piece. Something has happened in society. I think COVID definitely pushed it a million miles an hour, but we stopped like making eye contact with each other. We stopped like speaking to each other. We stopped interacting with each other. I work in a grocery store, so I have the potential to walk by 1,000 people a day. So when I tell you nobody's making eye contact, I'm in a very public space to be able to speak to that, and other people that exist in public spaces can speak to it too. But the hi, how you doing, like portion of like being a human being has kind of disappeared. So it's kind of sad to like be shocked that a human connection occurred, especially on the internet. But you're right; it is like it's a surprise, and I want to kind of let people know what the video was that you put up. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to see the short. I will in the description of this video put a link to your channel and a link to that YouTube short specifically, so people can check it out and get involved over there with what you've got going on. But will you take a moment to kind of describe what the situation was in the Ralph store? Was it a Ralph store? Or
Yeah, it was. So I'm over in the UTC area. So there's that Ralph's by the Trader Joe's, and I'm a multi-store shopper. Um, we um, we cook at home, so I go try to find the ingredients that I want. And I know certain stores have them, and went into Ralph's, and it was plastered there on the wall that pending labor shortage, or dispute, not a shortage, a pending labor shortage. If you're interested in being a temp worker, we're doing on the spot interviews. And I took a picture of it. Um, Shamefully, I will say that I did buy what I was buying that day, but I have not been at Ralph's since, um, or Vaughn's or Pavilions or any of the batch, and recorded the video. And I usually do single shot takes or just like single, just kind of going down the batch. That one took a while because I wanted to make sure that I got it right. So I was baking in my car as I got that one going. And we did. And no regrets. I had somebody reach out to me specifically and say, being pro union is going to potentially make people not want to work with you. And my response was, well, if that was going to be a reason they didn't want to work with me, then they would have found another reason to be unhappy anyway. So no regrets.
Yeah, that speaks to. I remember a Tom Morello quote for the guitarist for Rage Against the Machine. Somebody hit him up and said, "Man, I used to like your music until you got really political." And he replied, like, "Tell me what music you liked so I can delete it from my catalog." And it just is like, you know what, dude? If that's the line, if that's where the line is, you got to pick your side, right? There's a lot of things coming to a head, and I made a decision a couple years ago to change the side that I was on. I was a straight up bootlicker, self described. My district manager referred to me as a yes man one time, which was like, what had I done to myself to be described a yes man? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
then made that decision to switch sides and uh, join the people. And I'll tell you, like, moving into this labor action that you described, just to kind of catch everybody up, there's grocery workers across the country are putting their feet down basically and not accepting bad contracts from these multi-billion-dollar mega food conglomerates any longer. And we witnessed a failed merger occur between Albertsons and Kroger, in which they wasted billions of dollars trying to merge into a monopoly.
That was a happy moment for me, by the way, when I saw that fail.
uh,
Thrilled.
Big time. It was it's really interesting because UFCW International actually chose to stay neutral on that and not come out against that merger. And shout out to the campaign, the Stop the Merger campaign that sprouted out between some of the locals that we talked about, a couple in your area, 770 and 324. They
Yeah.
got together with 3000 up in Washington and Local 7 in Colorado and created the Stop the Merger campaign and basically got petitions and got politicians involved. Got Lena Khan involved, and basically credit goes to them for standing up and shining a light on what would have been a monopoly that hurt the workers even further. Those companies punished all of us by after the failed merger that they wasted billions of dollars on. They spent billions of more dollars paying out shareholders to appease them on the failed merger, and we saw that. We saw that as workers plain as day. For those that don't know what it was like working through COVID in the grocery store, think about it however you may. Try to rewind back in time to that moment when you did not know if you were going to live or die. A lot of people comfortably stayed at home and didn't leave their houses and made sourdough bread and, joked about whatever. They had no stress in their life, continued to get paychecks at home while they didn't work. There was a class of people called essential workers that had to go out there still and work every day. And, I have brothers and sisters that, I was a manager at the time. So, full disclosure, I wasn't in a union at the time, but people I worked with, they died from COVID, and they had family members that died. A lot of people I knew ended up in the hospital. There were people I knew on ventilators. I'm sure everybody knows people that were impacted by COVID. That was a horrible, horrible time to have to exist in fear in your workplace. And that's going to happen again. If something happens like that again, if, God forbid, we're ever in a situation like that again, we will be out there working. And so, essential workers, people that will always be out doing their jobs, to see the way that we were being treated by these companies in retrospect, after they were so willing to throw away billions of dollars to people that had no value, and to appease a group of people that are, not a part of the beating heart of this corporation on the customer to worker level, like you and I would experience in the grocery store every day. Those people at Ralph's that you've gotten accustomed to seeing. As a grocery worker, I can attest to seeing kids like grow up in the store and become customers of their own and start their own families. There's kids that came to the grocery store on field trips that I helped coordinate that now work for the company as employees. So the grocery stores are a touchstone in every community. They're under attack right now by the corporations that control them, like no joke. They're literally trying to cut you out of the building. They don't even want you in the building anymore. Stay outside. We'll bring the food to you. Please let us turn this into a warehouse, an automated one, if we can make it happen. They've already got them in Colorado. They're called clickless warehouses. You drive right up to them and somebody brings your food out to you, and inside of it's a warehouse. You can't even shop. That's, again, when I talk about like the eye contact and the person to person contact, like that's an intentional like push away from like human beings being able to coordinate and form community with each other. And grocery workers everywhere are done. We're not going to be a part of that. You've got strike action happening all over the country. Colorado's currently out on strike. Seattle is going through a tentative agreement vote right now. Most members seem to not be interested in that tentative agreement. The rhetoric, the vibe online is vote no on that thing. We'll see how the results shake out after the final day of voting tomorrow. You've got Southern California on their final 3 days of negotiations. They end tomorrow. The word on the street is that that deal's not looking too good either. And then here in my local, we just finished our last 2 days of negotiating. The company has refused to move on any major proposals, and the raises that they're offering wouldn't take effect until January 2026. So they're not even going to put our pay up right now. We're in a situation right now. People don't understand this. There's people out there that are like, if you don't like the job, leave. If you don't want it, whatever. The people need to stop doing that, and they need to fix the places they're in. They need to, especially if you're in a union, you need to leverage that to pick up what's going on with the working people and fix it. We're not going anywhere. Right now, people that work in the grocery store that have been there for 6, 8 years are making $16.90 an hour. Everybody knows what California fast food wages are. It's $20 an hour. I'm a journeyman head clerk. I've got 15 years of experience. I manage $1.8 million of standing inventory every day. I'm the receiver for my store. I make $29 an hour. It's not a living wage. It isn't enough for us to survive. Nobody can afford a house. Nobody can afford a truck. We have nothing left to give. So what you're witnessing across the entire West Coast is grocery workers banding together and putting their foot down in collective action. Connecting with Brandon and getting community support on that is truly inspiring, because this is a scary, scary fight.
Well, I appreciate it. If anybody ever says to my face, well, if you don't like it, leave, that's grounds to fight. Like, I'm not even kidding, because that is so abhorrently dismissive, not just of your situation, but just of work in general. Trust me, if people could, they would. Forget you got bills, right? I mean, I will say that getting the chance, and I frame a lot of this as opportunity, the way I've been able to go to school, the way I've been able to run my business. I am fortunate to be able to do these things. We're dual income household. We were able to move to San Diego from Minnesota. Like, these are things that you can't take for granted. And if everybody could do it, they absolutely would. And we lose some of that in ourselves as we kind of move up the chain. You talked about it with kind of some of what you were saying as well, just how you were described by one of your supervisors, and it created a reaction to where it's like, nah, that's not how I want to be viewed. I want to be something else. It's that shred of humanity that you were talking about earlier with how we communicate and engage with each other that we lose as we progress through life, thinking that we are above certain things. But I will go back to what I said earlier. People are the greatest resource that we have. And regardless of the level that you're at, you need people to be successful. If I don't have people engaging me, wanting me to work with them, partner with them, I don't have a business. The grocery stores, if people don't patronize those grocery stores, there's no business. And on that, there's a myth that is, I don't know where this one started, but the power does reside with the people. It always has, and it always will. It's just that a lot of people are undisciplined, I would say a little selfish and unwilling to go without. But things like egg prices, don't tell me that eggs at any point in time should cost $7, $8. I don't care if bird flu wiped out 2/3 of the population. I have spent time in a spot where we had chickens. I have taken care of other people's chickens. They lay eggs routinely. And if you've got a flock, you will have eggs. And the reason why egg prices went up is because people kept buying them. It is as simple as that. Now, obviously, there's nuance in the economy and all those things, but when it comes to markets, when it comes to jobs and these types of things, the people control the market always, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't need a union to control the market. And that message is getting lost. I don't know if it's just a lack of fight, a lack of desire, but it is frustrating because it seems like you are fighting against so much. So I empathize with what you're saying because it's getting people to understand, hey, you've got some power here if you want to exercise it. Now, there's going to be a little pain with it. There is no prosperity without a little bit of struggle. But man, when we get to the other side of this, it will be prosperous and you will have that living wage. You will have those things that make your life significantly easier because it should not be this hard as it is right now for so many of us. I'm 31 years old, right? I feel like I got hustled a little bit, just a little bit, right? And I think a lot of people in our age demographic feel the same way. Like it should not be this hard.
Yeah, that's we witnessed, as a person, I'm 42, so as a person that's been growing up, let's say post 9/11 in adulthood, every step you've taken towards the quote unquote American dream, it's been pushed 4 steps further away from you. And that has continued without fail, step by step by step. You take a step, it gets pushed further. You take a step, it gets pushed further. And we exist in a society and in a structure, and capitalism is a flaw of this competitive environment, is that if you don't win, you die. There's winners, and then there's nobody else.
Yep.
And I don't know that I want to be a part of that society. We've witnessed kind of what that does to people, and we're on the other tail end of, like, that occurring for basically since the 80s, when we really lost the labor movement, basically when unionism started to kind of fall to the wayside. And for people out there that are yearning for a better time and thinking back to these days that they wished they had, I would like to remind you that it wasn't the factory job. It wasn't the factory job. You don't want Amazon to build 100 warehouses so that you can go back to slaving into the factory so that you can have the return to the good old days. It was the unions that built the middle class in those factories. What was happening prior to that was atrocious. And what was happening prior to that was even more atrocious. And
Yep.
you're in a system that's not designed to help you, when they would prefer your wages were $0 an hour. The ideal wage for you would be $0 an hour. And the push is always in that direction. What you're thinking of, the nostalgia that you have for the movies that you've watched, for the person that got off work after their 8-hour shift and went home to their house, that they were the only working person to provide for, went on a vacation and had an RV, that was a union job. That was unionism that had the floor, the working class wage was there. It provided what people thought was a fair life in America for a working person. That's not a radical idea. When you say that to people, when you ask every person, should a person working 40 hours a week be able to survive in this country? They don't say, depends, what are they doing?
No.
They say, yeah.
If the answer to that question is anything but yes, I mean, realistically, you should be you could do it on 32. You should be able to do it on 32, and to be able to do it there. And it's yeah, like you said, it's getting farther and farther away. I we Nobody can really define even what the American dream is anymore because it's survival. Like we want to be able to breathe until we have to pay rent again. That's it. That is
Depressing.
people talking about living their best life. I don't think anybody's living their best life. They're living a life and they're just trying to make it the best that they can. But that's exhausting. That's freaking exhausting.
There's a big difference between thriving and surviving, and I think that you're right that most people, I mean, we know the statistics, a majority of people are just trying to survive. And I want to take just a quick second to say to any of you out there that that's the situation for, that's probably not your fault. If it is your
Yeah.
fault, it's your fault. Okay, so no one's here to lecture anybody. If you're the cause of that, then that's not who I'm talking to, obviously, and that's a big pushback I get from a lot of people who aren't the cause of that. Is they'll instantly start describing a whole class of people, whether it's welfare people or immigrants or whatever class of person you want to label, you want to put on a human being to make them something other than yourself. That's what you see time and time again. So just take a minute, realize where all the wealth is getting pulled from. Understand, you're making it. You're the one generating it. The labor produces all of the wealth. Where does it go? It goes to the top. Brandon mentioned a 32-hour work week. A lot of people are like, oh, dude, lazy. Of course, lazy people, 32. You want 32. The productivity gains that have come from each worker, the capital output that you have as a worker now because of the technology that exists, is what makes that a reasonable claim. The reason you don't have it is because those productivity gains haven't been shared with you. They've been taken away from you 100%. We used to have 8 people on night crew because price tags didn't exist and UPC barcodes didn't exist. So they had to hand label every can 79 cents, 79 cents, 79 cents, 79 cents. That had a labor cost associated with it. When UPC barcodes came out, you could cut that labor in half. Did the workers share in that gain? No, that all went up to the top. A 32-hour work week reset with no loss in wages resets the productivity gains that the company wouldn't have been able to acquire without the value generated from the people working, and it shares it with them. So I'm fully on board with a 32-hour work week. A lot of people consider that a radical idea, but other countries have done it and experimented with it. And actually, I think the statistics show that capital output in the 32 hours goes up.
They have studies that show productivity goes up with less hours. They have productivity that shows it go up when people are working remotely. Again, people, if you apply any sort of human science to the workforce, it is not that difficult to see where the patterns and trend lie. The myth, and this is clearly from the company side, but my favorite one is people don't want to work, or we can't find people to work. My God, if there's a manufactured problem that has been created, it's certainly that one. I moved here to San Diego, and part of what's been a struggle with it is in 6 months of being here, I had 3 jobs. All of them were lost. I lost 3 jobs in 6 months. That's insane when you think about that. And then you kind of create your own independent piece, but it's a weird job market with a lot of people looking for work. Yet people are still saying we can't find people to work. It is the most bizarre thing. And if I'm going to throw out a conspiracy theory on this. I don't know if we're that podcast, but we're going to do it. I honestly think it is corporate collusion, if I'm being straight up with it. I think that they put out fake jobs. I think that they put out all these things to suppress the market, to get people desperate, so that they accept the first offer that's given to them. And if you've noticed that too, forget collective bargaining. Have you noticed how when people get job offers now, there's no negotiating of the benefits, no PTO up or down. It's here is your offer. This is your wage. Take it or leave it. And getting a job, I mean, you're relieved, but it also kind of feels like a hostage situation where it's like, well, if I don't take this, they're just going to give it to somebody else. Mm-hmm. And they will. And it's all these things that have eroded out of the workplace. I mean, you talk unions slowly dissipating, and that feels targeted, if anything. Like, my God, where like they don't just disappear. Unions don't just disappear unless there's intervention. You've got.
Well, you want to talk about collusion? We'll circle back on collusion here in just a second. Keep going, but you speak
wages
on collusion.
Not matching the cost of living. You've got negotiation not even taking place. You've got all these things. The benefits. We talked earlier about the benefits. If you are getting paid anything less than $25 an hour, it does not make sense to put somebody at full time in your organization. A, because they're probably under 26 and on their parents' insurance. B, $25 an hour, that's $52,000 a year. After benefits, if you're doing it for yourself and taxes and all that, you're hovering in the low 30s at best. At best, you are hovering in the low 30s. In California. So you're not living off of that.
No.
And it would make a whole lot more sense to redistribute that money into a higher wage and not pay somebody benefits. That is how you keep people around, not necessarily longer, because I think turnover is high for a lot of reasons, but it at least reduces the strain. You should not have to be working multiple jobs
No.
to make it. You should not have to be doing these types of things to survive. And companies, like we talk about the big bad company, I think it's a whole lot more surface level than that. This whole concept of trickle down, it just goes against human nature. It always has. So that people still cling to the Reagan era trickle down, it's going to bleed out to it. We have, forget 30 years of evidence from when it happened in the 80s, 40 years of evidence. We have hundreds, thousands of years of historical precedent that shows that when humans get resources, they don't share,
No.
they keep it. We are not wired to share anything. So if that is, either we need to have a fundamental shift in how that's allocated, not going to happen, or in the case of unions, they have to come back and they've got to take the fight back to the people. And it is literally the only way that this thing gets equalized. And I really genuinely wish more people saw it that way. So many people have anti-union sentiment who aren't in unions. It's like, well, they don't really do anything. It's like, the reason why you're not working 80 hours in 1 week is because unions took a lot of these fights all the way up to the top and got rights for workers that are outside of unions as well. People don't fundamentally understand the historical importance of this, as you were saying earlier, and it is the only pathway back to some level of equity.
Yeah. So I want to kind of add some of my own thoughts to that, because you're sparking all these things in my mind here, where you're right. People aren't familiar with the labor history. And why aren't we taught that in our systemic education? Why isn't the history of labor and unionism a huge part of our academic upbringing? Why aren't we learning about that as much as we're learning about all of these great individual people that created this great America by themselves, and idolizing individuals and allowing individual people to rise up to these points of prominence in our mind, where they appear as some elevated level of human being beyond, you and I? It's because that feeds into this system. So the people that achieve that, they feel like they are entitled to it, that they deserve it. Some people believe that they were picked by the Lord Himself to do that thing, and that we're not being taught this working class awareness, that as when you talk about it, when you speak about it, when you think about it, there's an intuitive thing inside of you that says, like, this is true, like, this is right, like, this is, I want all of us to win. Nobody would ever say out loud that they want everybody else to suffer so that they can have. But when you say that you don't want the bottom wages to come up because it makes everything else more expensive, that's what you're saying. You're saying that you don't want your quality of life to go down so that somebody else's goes up. And what we need to address is that if that's the response to working people making a living wage, is for the price of everything to go up, is that the world we want to live in? This isn't gravity. This isn't something that we're beholden to because that's the laws of physics. This is a system that has been put on top of us, and nobody asked to be a part of this. So we have a decision to make, each as individuals and then collectively as a people. Is this the system that we want to be a part of? And I think there's a lot of forces at play, a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of concentrated control, that moves against that, like, very aggressively. And the number of those people have gone up. So now there's more of them than there's ever been. It's not one J.H. Clare. It's not one Henry Ford. It's 100 billionaires, right? And they're spread across the globe. And the same way that technology has helped us collectively connect, it's also helped them collectively connect. And so they've been able to take that system of oppression, hide it from directly in front of our faces by moving it to other countries, and continue to perpetrate this reality that, again, nobody would say they think is fair. Everybody, all political parties, all people say this needs to be fixed, housing needs to be affordable, this needs to be better, but then it never gets there.
Yeah.
So why? What's up? And I think people are waking up to that. I think that the history of the labor movement's very important. Understanding that people fought, literally fought, got shot with Tommy guns, got firebombed, got locked inside of buildings and lit on fire to win these rights for us. When you put it in that context, like going to stand out in the sun in front of your grocery store for 5 days seems kind of easy, relative to what they had to do. But
Yeah.
they won a lot of gains, they won a lot of rights, and it was a really hard fight. And so no shade on them, but they put their feet up. They put their feet up and they relaxed and they enjoyed the fruit of that battle. But the battle is against a soulless entity. You're fighting against corporations, your corporate capitalism. So it never sleeps. It continues its assault. It chips away contract by contract by contract until you don't have a defined benefit pension anymore. You have a defined contribution pension. And you were half asleep, so you don't realize how that shifted all the risk onto you as an individual.
Yeah, and in an ideal world, like let's pie in the sky here with it all. And I will say this, regardless of the union, and I am a sports guy, you should always be rooting for the labor, even in professional sports where they're getting $1 million contracts. The CBA is not for the Pat Mahomes, the Aaron Rodgers, those people at the very top. It is to make sure that the people in the middle and certainly the people who are on those minimum contracts get the same protections. It is not for the top. That CBA, that collective bargaining agreement, is for making sure that there is at least some level of consistency. It's accountability. And I do think that with the right management and the right union leadership, that a functional, positive relationship should exist. Honestly, as management, you should want collective bargaining, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion,
Mm-hmm.
because it makes it easier. It's no different. Like what I see trip companies up a lot in my world, like the human resource compliance piece, is they don't follow their employee handbook. If you don't follow your employee handbook, the thing that says this is how we administer benefits, this is how we do leaves, this is how we discipline, our discipline structure, that's the one that gets people. If you don't follow that, you open yourself up to liability. When you've got a collective bargaining agreement, yeah, it can be a pain in the butt to negotiate, but it's easier to hold people accountable to that because you're not making things up as you go. You
Mm-hmm.
have clear defined rules and ways that you're going to operate. And for the people who are working under the collective bargaining agreement in the union, yes, it provides that safety, but it also gives you a means to hold them accountable as well, because those negotiations are very, very important. It is work to put together a collective bargaining agreement. I've talked to people who I've worked with and they're unhappy, like, well, we should unionize. And I laugh because it's like, okay, well, let's start with just what that would look like. You are going to need about probably 2/3 of your workforce to say that we are going to unionize if you want to have a 2/3 majority. And of that 2/3, you need those people to not be snitches. You need
Mm-hmm.
somebody, you need someone to be basically union buster proof. So that's the bare minimum that you're going to need. Then you're going to start talking about, okay, who are you going to have run it? Is that going to be someone internal or external? And you know all this stuff, and I'm sure you've talked to it. But when I've talked to people, then you start to get into, you're going to have to put money into escrow, because if you go on strike, you probably want to have a little something that's going to give you just an inkling of it. And people are like, that's what it takes. It's like, yes, this isn't just forming a club. You are creating something that is going to set the foundation and fabric for the people that work here for a generation, if you've
Mm-hmm.
done it right. And that is what people don't see. People see unions as this nuisance. This, like you said, wait, they're going to ask for more money and I'm going to have to spend more money myself. Well, that's not how it should go. That's the company making a choice to villainize you. I don't know why people they vote with the management when most
Always.
of them are just the worker. Most of the people that vote with management are the worker.
Mm-hmm.
And if they just took the glasses off for a second and saw, hey, this is screwed up. And it's screwed up not because these people are trying to do better for themselves. It's screwed up because you've got these people who are literally trying to hold progress back. I don't know how to message that one because it's, I don't know if it's aspirational, like people aspire to be at that level where they can call these shots, if it's ignorance, or if they just don't care. But either way, it's frustrating for me. I can only imagine how frustrating it is for you and other folks who are genuinely in the weeds of this fight because, my God, yeah.
Well, this matters. Like these conversations matter a lot, which is why I really appreciate you taking the time to have it with me, because it connects people across that divide, us that invisible divide, the assumed divide. It helps to show that we're all the same,
Yeah.
and we all deserve a piece of this planet that we're on. Everybody, my wife and I were talking about it today, but like, as a human being that didn't, choose to be here, what should every person should every person have a house? Should every person have food? Should every person have health care? Should every person have education? It gets really weird when you start trying to label what person doesn't deserve those things just on the fact that they're here on this planet. There's
Mm.
no what are we doing? Instantly, when you move into that area, you're creating this hierarchy of worth, and we've got it really twisted when we look at people, and the value that we put on them is what they can contribute to the capital of society, what output they can generate in our economy. And when you go down that slippery slope, you get into a weird place where like people with no arms have no worth. You get into this weird headspace where you like people with developmental disabilities that like you're gonna tell me that they don't have a right to exist here, or that we shouldn't provide them with a quality of life that is above nothing, because what they're contributing to society is nothing. Like that's not the social contract that I want to be a part of. And
Mm.
actually saying social contract just made me think about it, but that's the collective bargaining agreement that we have with each other. That's the deal that we made with each other as people. So to connect with customers that obviously we come from different backgrounds, but we have this thing in common, and that's that we stand in solidarity against exploitation of working people. And shout out to my brother Patrick Mahomes, dude. My labor union brother Patrick Mahomes hit me up. Let's do an episode. It really does speak to what how huge the divide is. The working people is a massive body, and if we can break through that barrier, if we can connect, if we can continue to bridge these divides and say, hey, even our customers, I mean, those are all working people. Help me win this fight. I got your back in yours. Whatever I can do to support you, I see you supporting me. And the more we make that eye contact, the more we make those connections, the more I think that we can start to kind of rebalance these scales in a way that's like fair for everybody and leaves nobody behind and makes nobody's fragile ego get shattered before their very eyes, except for maybe a few billionaires.
Yeah, I think we'd be good with that one. Yeah, it's again, and the cool if I share the story of why this all resonates with me.
Please do. I think it would
Yeah.
be a good way
So
to it would be a good way to kind of cap this
yeah,
off. I've kept you for a long time. I really appreciate your time.
yeah.
Send it
No,
home, my friend. Send it home.
so when I was growing up, my mom was part of a union, still is, with the airlines. And even as a kid, when you see this, you kind of feel and sense when something isn't right. So it was just mom and I growing up. And when the airlines merged, the flight attendants that came from the other airline in were not given their proper seniority. And my mom is about to retire this year, 50 years about in the industry, and doesn't get her bidding seniority because they still haven't appropriately given them the seniority that they deserve. And it didn't make sense, right? How a union could be the one that sides with management in favor of the people, not just that it acquired, but just in general. And it's created this very passive, hopefully soon to be active interest in really advocating for people. If I've got one problem with how things kind of operate today, it's people aren't willing to go to the mat for it. And when we look at things like why we've got workers' rights now, civil rights, these protests that rose up through it, somewhere along the line, we lost it. And I will say there are not many causes that I am willing to go protest for because it all seems like vanity. These marches, these days where people take social media, take some pictures, put them on social media, and well, I did my part. I can go resume my life. You got to be willing to lose something to get something that you want. And I have lost jobs because I have been on the side of being too pro people. I have fallen on the sword. Okay, I'm still able to sleep at night. And that job, clearly I don't have it anymore, and clearly it wasn't meant to be. But when we talk about this type of stuff, my mom was on strike for 3 years with the airline. 3 years in New York City, of all places. That ain't a cheap place. And on the other side of it, that's inspirational. That's the kind of stuff that you see, and it's just like, okay, well, there's a clear line here. To get something that you want, whether it be part of a union or otherwise, you got to be willing to sacrifice for it. And too many people, they just aren't. And because of that, I think a lot of people have taken advantage of people's unwillingness to be inconvenienced. And we've got a lot of work to do for it.
I agree, and they've done a really good job of redirecting the blame,
Mm.
so that you've got a misplaced enemy. It's probably your neighbor, and through that back and forth, the shell game has continued to your disadvantage. So I really appreciate connecting with you, brother. I really appreciate all your stories and insight. You brought a lot to this conversation as a customer and as a person that's building a business around connecting and advocating for human beings and working people. So again, I'll make sure to link all your YouTube stuff down in the description of this video. Check out Brandon's channel. Check out that YouTube short. I'll link to that directly so that you guys can watch it. This is the kind of connection that we need to keep making. This is the thing that the companies need to see. I really hope that nobody has to go through a 3-year strike. That would be, we're so close to on the precipice of collapse that it would take true community solidarity for working people to survive a 3-year strike right now. Paycheck to paycheck is real. That's what's really going on out there. That's a big part of the fear around doing anything collectively, collective action. And so to those of you that feel that your union, if you're in a union and you're listening to this and you say, I wish that my union would help me, my union doesn't help me, I feel you. I know I'm in the same boat. I will challenge you and I will say that you are the union. We've been conditioned to think that union leadership is providing a service to us, and they're just extracting value from you if you feel this way. If they're not participating, if you're not allowed in your negotiating room, if there's no democracy in your union, you're a victim of business unionism, and you're being taken advantage of in the same way that your corporation is taking advantage of you. I will challenge you and say that you are the union. Get educated, get activated, get involved. Find out what the reality is of the situation that you're in. Try to participate in your union, and if they don't let you, then take your own road, like we have here at What Cost. There's nothing stopping working people from doing this. We have the same rights protected under the NLRA, whether we are doing it under the capacity of the UFCW or we are doing it ourselves as workers. So, in my opinion, the only thing the unions really provided me is a restrictive no strike clause. So we can have that debate in a future conversation. But there's a big debate around the strangling of the labor movement just through actual unionism and the contracts that they impose upon us. When we have a lot more rights as workers when you eliminate some of that stuff. So interesting topic for another time. But thank you so much for showing solidarity down there. I know without a doubt that if the workers on SoCal end up having to go on strike, that you'll support them. Stop by, say hi, send some love from Eric and UFCW Local 8. And yeah, thank you, my brother, for your time. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. This is great.
Awesome. All right, that's it. Episode 10 of Worker to Worker is a wrap. It was worker to customer. Keep connecting. Make eye contact with your neighbor. Say hi. Start forming the bonds and the solidarity that we need to stand up to these soulless corporations. I know you have a soul. I can see it. I'll catch you next time. Peace.